A minority leader with major impact. Tonight we'll talk with Representative Stacey Abrams about her leadership role in the Georgia House, including her push to expand Medicaid. Also, as state Republicans work multiple bills on religious liberties, how are the Democrats planning to respond? RFRA laws are a touchy topic, but even more so in an election year. Lawmakers starts right now. Welcome to full coverage of Lucky Day 13 at the General Assembly as the legislature steams towards sine die. You want to talk steam? Columbus Senator Josh McKoon led off a little today. Our Shelby Lin has that and more in tonight's Capitol Report. Hi, Shelby.
Hi, Bill. We begin tonight with a controversy about the Ku Klux Klan and comments made by State Representative Tommy Benton, who has defended the conduct of the Klan in American history. Benton's comments angered a number of legislators and House and Senate in the House and Senate last week, including Senator Josh McKoon, who says there's no defense for the actions of the KKK.
I rise today to discuss the recent comments made by a member of this General Assembly regarding the Ku Klux Klan. The comments made are contemptible, they're wrong, and they deserve the strongest possible public condemnation. In 2016, one would hope we would not even have to have this discussion. The Klan was the original domestic terrorist organization. There is simply no excusing the murderous, terroristic campaign they waged against Americans. I hope that the author of these comments will reconsider them and apologize for them. It has been my experience that none of my fellow colleagues feel the same as that member.
Late today, Benton released a statement saying he did not intend to create a, quote, negative situation with his comments. He also says he's withdrawing his support for 3 House resolutions he sponsored to protect images of the Confederacy. Also tonight, House Speaker David Ralston applauded Benton for taking that action. Atlanta Senator Vincent Fort today blasted the new deal on the Beltline payoff between the city of Atlanta and Atlanta Public Schools. The city and the school district have been fighting over $162 million, money the city was supposed to pay APS for land along the Beltline path. But the new deal calls for Atlanta to pay much less, about $73 million through 2030. That means the school district is forgiving more than $70 million of the original debt. And Senator Fort, he's not happy.
The Beltline has gotten bailed out, and the children of the city of Atlanta have gotten sold out. Under pressure from myself and others who refuse to allow the city to walk away from its obligation to Atlanta's public schools, Mayor Reed has agreed to pay a portion of what is owed to our kids. This is money that the mayor, city council, and the Atlanta Board of Education have taken straight out of the classroom. Our schools need to be paid what they are owed. Our school children are still being shorted by $73 million.
Fort says he's planning to sponsor legislation that would force the city of Atlanta to pay the entire amount that was originally owed. Also in the Senate today, budget committees began reviewing the amended 2016 budget. The House approved the revised budget last week and sent it to the Senate for approval. The full Senate could vote on the amended budget by the end of the week. There's an effort underway this session to allow people in unincorporated areas of Georgia to implement a limited form of government called townships. The reasoning behind this township push is to give greater authority to communities to control the zoning in their area, to be better able to maintain and control the character and development of a neighborhood, for example. Township bills and accompanying resolutions have been introduced in both the House and the Senate, but the idea is not without opposition.
This is a bill which would allow the establishment of a lesser form of government to control only zoning and code enforcement issues. instead of having the full obligations of a city.
Senator William Ligon introduced the Senate version of the Township Act and its accompanying resolution that would require a constitutional amendment. Ligon calls townships a more limited form of cities that are just one more option for self-governance. In Ligon's home district, which includes St. Simon's Island, residents there, for example, were able to prevent a developer from building a store that opponents felt did not match the character of the neighborhood, even though it had county approval.
There have been complaints that some counties may not have been as responsive on zoning issues or enforcement of zoning ordinances. And this allows for governments, which is a little closer to the people that have an interest.
Representative Mike Dudgeon has introduced township legislation similar to Ligon's in the House. Dudgeon represents southern Forsyth County, where there's an interest in creating a so-called city light or limited city in Sharon Springs. But Dudgeon says there are too many legal problems that could arise from forming a limited city, and that a township makes better sense.
In our area, the county does a great job providing the services, the roads, the parks, the sheriff, and so forth. But the residents there a lot of the residents have a very strong feeling that because of their community identity and because of the differences of their region from the rest of the county, that they would like to have zoning authority more local instead of throughout the whole large county, in which case, and that is an area where that would make sense.
But Todd Edwards with the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia, or ACCG, has reservations about the township's legislation. He says it poses a risk for major conflicts between potential townships and the counties where they exist.
If you form a township, and say in St. Simon's case, or the situation you described, they want to ratchet down density or development. We may have been planning as a county for 20 years, so much water, so much sewer, so much transportation. Then all of a sudden a township entity gets in there, changes that, then that takes away our planning, our infrastructure, our investment. So if we plan for this many sewer or this many road capacity, that's all out the window.
Edwards also says that scenario could swing the other way too, with the township wanting to increase development without the proper infrastructure in place to handle it. He says it's the inherent conflict that concerns him.
I do take the legislators for their word that this is a limited case at this time and that they're meant to reduce density, land use planning, and zoning. But on the other end, if we've already planned or zoned an area in a certain way, that zoning doesn't go away when a township is formed. They've got vested land rights.
If the legislature approves the Township Act, then passes its accompanying resolution by a 2/3 vote, voters would still have to decide whether to change the Georgia Constitution in November to allow for townships. Finally tonight, an update on that horse racing bill we reported on earlier in the session. The bill has now cleared a Senate committee and is heading for debate on the floor. The plan would allow Georgians to vote on a constitutional amendment that would legalize parimutuel betting in Georgia. There's also a second bill that actually spells out how horse racing would work in the state. The Senate Regulated Industries and Utilities Committee approved both measures. No word yet on when the full Senate will debate them on the floor. That's it from the Capitol. Tonight, Bill, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Shelby. Appreciate that report. All right, we have some power at this table tonight, and I've been really looking forward to our conversation. Joining me, of course, is political writer Jim Galloway of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Representative Stacey Abrams. She's a Democrat from Atlanta. She is the House Minority Leader. And sitting across from her, Representative John Burns, a Republican from Newington. He is the House Majority Leader. So thank you both very much for being here. Jim, always great to have you here. Representative Abrams, let me start with you, if I could. You made some news this morning in Mr. Galloway's paper, the AJC. You've introduced a bill. We know that Republicans have said over and over, including the governor, we don't want to expand Medicaid. Down the road, we think it'll cost the state too much money. So you've now introduced a bill that really puts that on the table for debate right now. Talk about your legislation, please.
HB 823 says that Georgia should expand Medicaid. What we call into question is whether we can afford not to. We, in 2003, spent $410 million to encourage Kia to build a plant here that created 3,000 new jobs. Medicaid expansion would cost roughly $209 million a year starting in 2017. And actually, that's still a bit high. But for every year for the next 7 years, we would create roughly 3,000 jobs a year, so we could create 19 Kia plants between now and 2023. What that means is that we're not only saying no to health care for 478,000 Georgians, including 25,000 veterans who are kept out of Medicaid because Georgia refuses to expand, we're also saying no to 56,000 jobs that could employ and help lift up these communities. We're also saying no to rural hospitals that are in desperate straits. And these are hospitals across the state of Georgia that when they shut down, 30% of the economic development in that community can go away. And so what we're calling on is for us to move past the partisan conversation that is surrounded Medicaid expansion and really focus on the people conversation. Better health care access, more jobs, and more economic development.
You know, Representative Burns, it's interesting that, you know, we've heard talk here on this show a couple weeks ago. Senator Fran Miller said, yeah, Republicans ought to look at expanding Medicaid. It's been talked about, but now Minority Leader Abrams puts it out there as a piece of legislation. How do you imagine your caucus is going to deal with it?
Well, I appreciate, number one, that leaders putting it out for discussion. But, you know, there's a little different viewpoint on how Medicaid expansion affects the state. From a budgetary standpoint, we certainly know that the Medicaid reimbursement to the hospitals is pennies on the dollar. We don't reach the full cost of the expansion in the hospitals, of the cost of care in the hospitals when they apply the cost. We also know that the woodwork effect, if you will, of the folks that are coming out that would qualify for the Medicare, under the Medicare expansion rules, we have concern that multiplier effect on that part of the budgetary issue that doesn't reach the cost will cause even more problems for the rural hospitals. What we want to do is certainly have this discussion with the leader. We also know that the Georgia Chamber has initiated a study statewide that brings all of these people into discussion, all the players in this issue into discussion. We want to make sure this isn't too important for Georgia to make a mistake now. We've down this path. We want to make sure that we provide access to health care to all Georgians. But we want to do it in a very conservative, reasonable way. And we believe that looking at it as we've done through the through our process, and now with this Blue Ribbon Study Committee, that we'll have some answers.
Jim?
Mr. Leader, before the program started, your wife was telling us how you folks are truly living in rural Georgia. You are far out there. I mean, do we have a situation where doing nothing is acceptable, or is something going to have to be done this year, next year?
Well, Jim, I would say to you that we are not doing nothing. We across this state, we have a very successful program of federal health centers that are taking care of Georgians with dollars from the state that qualify those centers for federal dollars, and certainly they bring into the mix private players and the faith-based institutions that can come out and make sure that those Georgians are in most need of health, even in the rural areas especially, make sure they're required to come out and do just what we do in our private health insurance, is we make sure that we look at the total person and ensure that they get the proper care at the proper time, and they were educated not to go to the emergency room every time we have a cold, but make sure we go to a primary care physician, which we think we can meet those goals there.
You go ahead, do a quick follow-up.
But we have a situation where next year the federal subsidies to hospitals that handle indigent care could be shut off. And I would think that would be quite the disaster, not just for Grady here in Atlanta, but for hospitals throughout the state.
Well, let me redirect that, if I could, to you.
And I with great respect for Leader Burns, the challenge is not the FHQC. So those are federally qualified health centers, are very important, but they are a small part of a larger network. The way funding of healthcare works in Georgia and across the country is that we put in a bit and we draw down a lot more. The buckets that we used to draw from something called the disproportionate share payments, or DSH payments. We draw from the Indigent Care Trust Fund. We also drew from Medicaid. Well, all of those buckets have been poured into one big bucket that now has Medicaid written on the outside. I don't care if we write Ronald Reagan healthcare access law for 2017 on the outside, but the bucket is now a different bucket, and the water that what we used to draw from is now there. The problem we have is if we don't expand Medicaid, we can't go back to those two buckets that have been supporting our healthcare system for the last 20 years.
Let me, if I can, ask you a pragmatic question. Clearly, you do not have numbers to be able to count on Democrats to pass your bill. So, are you sensing there are Republicans out there, like Senator Miller over on the other side of the building, who might be willing to join an alliance with you? Or are you making a statement this session that you hope voters will think about when they go to the polls in November?
I think it's a combination. I have had a number of Republicans who I will not out who have come to me and said, yes, we think this is going to happen. And there are legitimate concerns about this because part of our challenge is understanding how healthcare works in Georgia. Leader Burns is absolutely right that one of our challenges is the Medicaid reimbursement rates. But with the expansion of Medicaid, with the infusion of new dollars, you can also reset what your reimbursement rates are. And so we have an opportunity to not only expand Medicaid, protect rural hospitals, build new jobs, but you also have the ability to increase reimbursement rates, which will help Georgia because we have a deficit of doctors. He's absolutely right that we have a challenge with people who use emergency rooms as doctors' offices, but they do so because they don't have doctors in their communities. We won't get those doctors unless we expand the pool of paying customers. And that's all Medicaid does. Medicaid says we want insurance as opposed to uncompensated care because poor people get sick whether they have money or not.
You want to make a quick response before we go to break?
Quick response. Yes, we do need to ensure access to health care for all Georgians. There's no doubt about that. There are several ways we need to do it. One of them is controlling cost. It's not solely on the back of the physicians or the hospitals. It will take a broad-based reduction in cost that starts with legislation also as we look at controlling the overburdening amount of regulation that burdens our hospitals and doctors and drives up the cost. There's a wide range of things we can do legislative, including tort reform, that can help with this cost, and we're going to work towards that in the end.
All right, we've got to take a break. And when we come back, we got a lot that we can cover in a very short amount of time. Among other things, Representative Tommy Benton in the news today after he was treated very harshly by a number of members of both the Republican and Democratic Party, but we also have other issues as well. Iowa, the caucuses begin in a matter of about a half hour or so. We're going to see what the presidential caucuses tell us about what voters really are thinking as they finally get their say. We'll talk to these two about how they think things are going to play out here in Georgia just a month from now. But first, how well do you know your lawmakers? Emory Donahue is a Republican from Gainesville. He represents House District 30. Donahue was sworn into the General Assembly in 2011. He's traveled to Turkey and Africa and says he really wants to get to Israel someday. He calls himself a passionate outdoorsman who loves hunting and fishing, but he's also fond of singing, maybe because Johnny Cash is his fifth cousin. Another distant cousin, Ab Dixon, not only worked on set design for the original Star Wars, he also created the Pillsbury Doughboy. More lawmakers in just a minute.
There's no question that James Garfield could have been a great president.
James, we've talked to you.
Charles Guiteau thinks God says you need to kill the president.
The president has appointed me as his personal physician.
Murder of a President on American Experience.
Tuesday at 9 on GPB.
Strangely beautiful, endangered, elusive until now. China's rare snub-nosed monkey. For 2 years, our crew follows a family and their two half-brother babies. One, a pampered prince of the community. The other, an orphan who struggles. In the Mystery Monkeys of Shangri-La.
Part of GPB's Why Wednesday, this Wednesday at 8.
Come on, man. Step, step. That's it.
Did you know that Jefferson Franklin Long of Macon was the first African American from Georgia to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives? He was also the first African American to ever make an official address to fellow legislators in Congress. It happened on this date, February 1st, 1871. The House was considering repealing a post-Civil War law that prohibited former Confederate officials and military officers from holding public office. Long, a former slave, spoke in opposition. Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Bill Nigut. Here with me tonight, Jim Galloway from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, House Minority Leader Stacey Abrams, and House Majority Leader John Burns. Jim Galloway, Representative Tommy Benton slapped down pretty hard by, of course, Vincent Fort and Josh McKoon in the Senate, but then forced to withdraw his bills in the House.
Well, I don't know that he was forced to. He withdrew pulled his name off the bill. The Speaker thanked him for that, said he didn't want to tolerate any kind of talk that would push relations back from the way we've progressed over the last 100 years. Mr. Benton specifically said, that the Klan was not a racist organization, that it was designed to discipline certain people, and that he referred to Senator Fort, who wants to remove some Confederate symbolism as a kind of a cultural terrorist.
So I would guess, Leader Abrams, that we haven't been told he was forced to withdraw, but the Speaker's office clearly wasn't thrilled with the way he talked and this kind of rhetoric in the House.
I think everyone was disappointed with the framing that Chairman Benton offered with his legislation, and I think we're all very pleased that this has been resolved so quickly and that the legislation is being removed.
Did the Speaker want him to drop these bills? Was he looking for a way to say to him, you can't talk this way, you can't do this to our body?
I think that's correct, and I'll say that Chairman Benton, I don't think there's any hate in Chairman Benton's heart. This was a situation, he made some statements, and we're ready to move forward. As the Speaker said, we have important work to do this session, and it's time to get moving forward with some other issues that are really important to Georgians. So that's where we're going.
Okay, fine. Let's move on to the religious freedom bills. You've got 7, 8, 9, 12. I can't even keep track of all of them.
They're like bunnies.
Just in a general way, you basically draw the line in the Democratic caucus with all of them?
I think that the Speaker's bill on pastor protection is one that is affirmed currently by the Supreme Court. I think there's a great deal of misunderstanding about the situation that's posed by the Supreme Court's decisions. My parents are ministers, and they had a question about what it means. They're in Mississippi. But I understand that there is some confusion about whether or not pastors will be compelled to move against their own sacrament. And I think it's important to reaffirm what the court has said. I think the rest of the bills being offered are dangerous and unnecessary and run the very real risk of putting into practice discrimination not only against the LGBT community, but a broader conversation about discrimination that Georgia does not need.
One question, let me ask you this. Rich Golick has proposed a bill that would extend civil rights protections for public accommodation and has left it open to have same-sex discrimination included in that. Is there some sort of package at work that we might be seeing two bills on parallel tracks here?
Well, I think that HB 849, which is the bill that's being carried by Chairman Golick, begins a conversation about civil rights laws in Georgia. We are one of only 5 states that did not adopt a state version of public accommodations. We're one of only a handful of states that does not have inculcated in our code and in our Constitution civil rights laws. And so I think this is an important first step. I think the timing of it provides an opportunity for us to have a very thoughtful conversation about how we deal with same-sex issues and how we deal with the LGBT and the LGBTQ communities.
Leader Burns, your friends in the Republican caucus over in the Senate had last year. They've always been very willing to pass the RIFR bills over there. They did that with Josh McKoon's bill very early on. These measures come to the House. Your Republican caucus in the House, especially with the Speaker in the lead, doesn't seem as eager to take these things on. Is it your hope that the one measure that passes, as Leader Abrams has said, maybe is the pastor protection bill, and that the rest fall by the wayside?
I think the leader made some very good points, and yes, the pastor protection does just what we need to do, and that ensures the freedom of religion and the practice of religion. And that's what I think our founding fathers wanted to ensure, that we were protected from governmental influence into our religious practices. The community where I live, the Salzburgers came there several hundred years ago to practice religious freedom because they were persecuted by government. And so I think you see the same things, the same sort of ideals that are so sacred to us at play here. So I think our focus in the House will be on the pastor protection bill, and I think that's where you'll see a lot of emphasis, and I certainly agree with it.
Iowans are about to walk into their caucus location. They're probably lined up right now. It's probably 10 below zero or something like that. Leader Abrams, you're a Hillary Clinton supporter.
I am.
So what do you figure is going to happen tonight, and what's it going to mean as the campaign moves toward Georgia?
I believe she's going to win, and I think it's going to signal the strength that she has, not only in Iowa. I certainly think that Senator Sanders will win New Hampshire. But I think everywhere after that will be Clinton territory, and we look forward to inviting her here to Georgia.
Leader Burns, you're watching this race unfold. Are Ted Cruz and Donald Trump good for the Georgia Republican Party?
I'm not sure. We'll find out in a couple of weeks when we have our SEC primary. So I think we've had a very robust discussion through this primary season up to this point, and I would be interested to see the results and how our good neighbors out in the Midwest, how they feel about the two of them. But I think you'll see I'm really pleased that Secretary Kemp helped this measure move forward, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for Georgians to weigh in on a very important decision for our country.
All right, you got 20 seconds. You want to make predictions about tonight, Jim?
Okay.
Republican
side.
Can
I be wrong?
Real quick.
Okay. I say Donald Trump underperforms. Ted Cruz takes it. Marco Rubio finishes third.
And you have it. Okay, Democrat, real quick. Is Hillary win it? Can Bernie turn out his troops?
The insurgents underperform. Hillary Clinton takes it.
We have that on tape. Thank you all so much. It's tough to miss the gold dome that sits on top of the state capitol when you're driving through downtown Atlanta. So our Jackie Britton decided to take a look behind the scenes and tell us how it got that shiny complexion and more. Watch this.
The Georgia State Capitol is one of the most iconic buildings in downtown Atlanta because of the gleaming gold dome at the top. But why is it gold and who put it there? Well, let's go get to the bottom, or rather the top of that.
When I get off the freeway and driving here, I look at that gold. It's so impressive.
Yeah.
That's why I go.
Representative Brooks Coleman could be described as a walking Georgia history book.
I'm going to show you something now. Let me show you this. Look at that. Look at how big the scaffolding was that they put up there.
And his roots run deep here in Atlanta, in particular at the state capitol, where his grandfather laid the original gold leaf in 1959.
The first gold rush in America, one of the first, was in Dahlonega, where gold was first discovered. Then the state took it, hired this company that my grandfather worked for, and they took it, and they were painting the capitol at that time anyway, and so they took that and made it into gold leaf. And gold leaf is thinner than tissue paper, really.
Jeez.
And they put it on the Capitol.
The first application consisted of 43 ounces of 23-karat gold and has been reapplied twice since 1959 due to weather damage. So off we went to check it out in person.
All my friends back at GPB, it was nice knowing you.
I like that.
223 steps to the top awaited us, but the view once we got there was worth every one.
This is so crazy.
It's nice.
It's kind of copper, but for today's sake, it can be gold. Dressed appropriately.
About once a year, the Georgia Building Authority inspects the gold to make sure it's always looking pristine. Not only does the gold dome serve as an iconic piece in Georgia history, but it also bears the weight of Miss Freedom, the 15-foot, 2,000-pound woman at the top.
Gold is something that never disappears. There's still as much gold today as there ever has been. It doesn't deteriorate, it doesn't go away.
But we didn't leave without leaving our mark. For GPB News in Atlanta, I'm Jackie Britton.
Wish my grandfather was here to see that.
I know, that was good.
Thank you very much for that report, Jackie. And thanks to our guests tonight for joining us. That does it for day 13 of the 2016 session. 27 legislative days to go. We'll be back tomorrow night with day 14 coverage. As always, you can track us on Facebook and Twitter at GPB News. You can check out our website where you can find full episodes of the show at gpb.org. And don't miss our GPB radio show, Political Rewind, Wednesdays at 2, Fridays at 3. Jim Galloway and I will be there to try to lead you through a conversation that makes sense of what's going on in state and national politics. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Bill Nigut. See you tomorrow night.